Alright. I said that stay tuned with me, and I was working on something here, scrambling around inside my head to see if this is possible to put a new LED display in a D5 or a D7 in a better fashion than what I did on the D5 job. And it kind of looks like it might happen here. So I guess what I'm just going to do here is go over the pieces real quick, because I didn't want to wait too long to start this video, because I had no idea. It would just be harder to follow, and there would be a lot left out when you're looking at finished pieces. So I'm just going to give you the entire disaster as it lies before me right now. And this is a disaster here. Get some better light here. This is actually the display board out of my D5 before I put in that other unit that I don't like. But I want to do something much better, so I don't want to make any mistakes with this. Now the big issue is here, will these display driver chips, these IR2406s, drive something else? From everything I see, I don't see any issues. So starting off here on a funny note, you know, I could, and I didn't even actually give you all the pieces yet, I could wire some new displays into this, pull these off, wire it into the board, excuse me, and change all the wiring around to see if I can make it work with the display setting off the board. Or I could just jump right to the bottom of the barrel and just make a display fit right in there where this one is, and hope and pray that when I get it all wired up, it actually works. So that's the funny part of this. We can either attach this or we can detach it. If we attach it, then we really got something carved in stone, and you just don't know when there's going to be a disaster. But I think I'm just going to jump right to the bottom of the barrel on this. So here's my plan without further ado. I have been staring at these little tiny things all day long now. I just got them. Honestly, I can't say I'm a fan of them, but they got to be better than what I had before. I'm already not liking the fact of working with them. They only come in a 10-segment display, which is an issue because we got 12 segments here. So I've already had the displeasure of cutting this rail, sanding it, and modifying it to get extra LEDs on it, which my clamp's on the wrong side right now for this, but I'll just give you the gist of it. It's a pretty close match to pick up 2 extra segments. Unfortunately, I just don't have precision things to do this job, so I'm working with woodworking tools here. I mean, I actually cut this on a miter box for a 2x4 with a hacksaw blade. I mean, and there's just a lot of room for error in that whole process. And this is kind of a project here that you can't have any error at all. And unfortunately, this is made of nylon. So it's really a pain. You can't sand it evenly, and one swipe and it may be too much, but you know, that's mating there. So not to get stuck, but I have another one here. I did the same thing. Obviously, with the way these are fashioned, we're not going to be setting it on this end, we're going to be setting it on this end. So you can see what I did here. I extended the bottom of the display. So this will go on there. And you can see, well, hopefully, it matches up pretty good. So I made this little barrier here to tack these two things together. And oh my, I swear that took the patience of Job just to do that. And here's what I did. If I can even find the materials. I'm just not sure. But I'm a big fan of this ABS stuff here. It's so easy to work with. I mean, you score it once or twice, and even the real thick stuff will snap. And it's usually a pretty clean break. So what I did was, and I don't know if this is the same exact piece that I used or not. I think it was 3.87 millimeters. If I can get this. I probably just undid some critical dimension that I had on there. That's usually the way it works. I just undid a critical dimension. Oh, I think it was these two. Because the magic number was, I think, 3.86 millimeters is the spacing I needed. So that equates to a piece of .060. I don't know, what is that, 16th, 8th? I'm not sure. So a piece of .060 and a piece of .096. I don't know. My calipers are kind of shady. It depends where you go here. But this is all stuff that's readily available, and I think it was marked and sold in fractional inch dimensions. It wasn't anything metric. So I'm sure anyone familiar with this ABS material that they use, I think, a lot in car stereo installs, you can get this stuff. So I'm not going to really dwell on that, but I like to be thorough. So what we have to do is find out what's the best way to get this on this board, and there's a lot of ways to go about this. You know, my first concept was, how about we just take it off the board, space this board back in the unit, which would be a can of worms all on its own, but space this board back, and then ribbon cable from this to this, and make a satellite out of it, basically. And I thought, man, I don't know about that. I hate ribbon cable, honestly. I love wire wrap, but just the thought of wire wrap and all that just didn't really appeal to me. So I thought, well, we'll just go to the bottom of the barrel here and dive right in, and we'll try to drill some holes and align this little bugger. So like I said, there was like many options. So the first thing I did was just carve in stone the dimension between the inside of these LEDs. And what I mean by carve in stone was find two materials that would give that perfect spacing. So you can see, if we center our LEDs there, then we would just need to figure out where our pins are going to lay. Because these pins, they didn't really do any favors when Sharp manufactured these. It's kind of a dead-end product, and what I mean by that is it's something you got to have the exact same thing, or you'll simply never be able to do it. And it's very hard to see, but Sharp's pins are only setting back to about right here, and right here on this one. So we had to look at what's going to happen if we want to. The first thing was, what happens if we just want to somehow stick this down into the existing holes? And of course, there's a million things wrong with that. Is the connections aren't right, and the other issue that I didn't even talk about yet is the pin spacing on this. The pin spacing on this is 0.1 inches here, which is fine, but the problem is here. We're no longer 0.1 inches, and then we go to 0.1, and then we jump again. So we got a staggered effect, basically, in the pin spacing. So my idea was this. Maybe it would be possible to superimpose this, line this up with our existing LEDs, like so. Superimpose two marks onto this circuit board that correspond to the pins of this. So flipping this around, I'll show you exactly where the road I'm on right now. I flip this around, measured from this edge to that edge, and so on, and centered this exactly. And then I transposed these pins down onto the board as accurately as I could. And there's room for error there. Like I said, I am not a precision, I don't have precision equipment. I wouldn't even know what you would use. So I transposed those down, and the highest accuracy thing I did have in front of me to work with was these little PC drills. And generally a drill bit this size will break off the first time you go to use it. But that's another story. So what I did was I made 2 marks here. One on this side of the pin, one on this side of the pin, and then come over and did the same thing on this pin. I transposed the sides of the pins down, and then came through to get the greatest accuracy and drilled right down through the center of where those 2 side marks were made on both sides. And there is a tiny, tiny, tiny little hole here. I can't see it through the camera, but I can actually see it through my glasses half decently. So I got those marks on the board. I double checked the board to make sure that these are actually setting square with the edge. And when I did this, I squared off the same edge for the multiple squaring ordeals that I had to go through. I didn't switch edges because that can open up a can of worms too. So if you come down to the back of the board, what you probably won't be able to see on the camera is right there's the one hole and right there's the other hole. Now there's a whole lot of room for error in between these, but I'm just going to have to fly by the seat of my pants. It came out to 9.04 millimeters was the best I could correlate it to. So as accurately as I could, I scribed down the back of the board with a knife here. And there's a whole process to that when you're scribing. I mean, I just don't even know at this point where this is going to go because there's a lot of room for error. So I scribed these 2 lines, and my plan is to do this. These are going to be the lines that we're going to use to drill new holes, and that will keep this display centered with the center of where this display was, which is a very good thing because in the unit, and I haven't popped it open yet, but I'm going to be getting there soon hopefully to make sure there's no clearance issues with something I didn't possibly think of. But in the unit there is a shroud that comes out at an angle and kind of like baffles into the lights. So if I were to have shifted this display like I was originally going to do here earlier, it would have been a total disaster. So we wanted to keep that centered. So I'm going to, like I said, I scribed these lines down through. Now what I'm going to have to do is, I thought this line was going to fall on the ground path, but it's actually so close, it's not on it. But I'm going to have to Dremel this ground off the whole way down. I'm going to have to cut all these, let me see, actually I won't have to cut these loose. Originally I was thinking I would have to cut these loose the first way I was actually going to do this. But it doesn't look like I'm going to have to cut these loose. And I just, right now I just can't read that far ahead because there's just, this is like a 4-dimensional thing here, and I just can't even keep track of it. So I'm just trying to go one little step at a time with it. And then what I'll do is, as accurately as I can, once again, start drilling these holes down through here to our new hole patterns. And then there's going to obviously be paths in the way and this and that, and I'm going to have to just grind them out and get them out of the way as we go. And then once we get the whole thing in and centered, I'll just have to run wire wrap from all the pads or the paths onto this. And you know, that's really the easiest way I can come up with to do this whole process. You know, I've thought about this from 6,000 different angles, and I just can't come up with a better way to do it. Unless you were to satellite it off the board. But I didn't want to do that because if I satellite it off the board, well then how in the world am I going to attach this to the front face? And the front face is already an issue. I don't want to be hogging up that front face, running silicone rubber and all kinds of cheap stuff up and down adhesives or Lord knows what to hold this thing to the front face, because that also creates a cleaning issue. If you can't take this out from the front face, how can you clean it? And eventually stuff's going to get in there. So that's why another reason I did away with the satellite issue of pulling it off the board on wire or ribbon cable or whatever. So that's where I'm at. 16 minutes to show you where I am here, but that's where we are, and I'll just keep making videos as we go, and hopefully this flies. I didn't give you the most critical piece because I guess I didn't want to say this just in case some unforeseen disaster happens, but you know, I got it in front of me, so I got to. These are our Lumex LXH's 1025 G8Y1 I1D. I don't even know. I can't tell the difference between I's and 1's anymore, at least not on this stuff. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a 10 segment and make it into a 12. One more thing real quickly. I stumbled over this too. What's the best option here? I mean, we got a red and we got a yellow. Generally the yellow is at 0 dB, which is full power, and I have to correlate this a little bit better with the markings on the front of the unit before I do something here. But with 0 dB being here on the yellow, which is full power, you know, what's the best thing to add to it? Two greens on each side to the bottom, or come up here and tack another red and another green on the bottom. And you know, I kind of stumbled around on this for a while, and then the decision actually got easier because I couldn't even find red LEDs to replace them. But I do have a whole box of greens here that seem to say that they're the exact same greens that are in this. So I'm going to go with what I think is the safest bet, even though it doesn't appeal to me as much, and that would be tacking 4 greens on the bottom. I was kind of thinking about tacking an extra red on top, but that's just me. So anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Have a good day.